Hi everyone, Daljit here from Astrolab 21. Welcome to Taurus season 2024. We are officially in Taurus season, and it's been a little while since I've done one of these seasonal videos, but I wanted to take the time to do one for this particular season because there's actually quite a bit of astrological weather, if you will, coming our way during Taurus season. A couple of major transits that are worth taking a deeper dive into. Of course, we are just moving through, and we are still in sort of the shadow of that recent complete solar eclipse in Aries. So a lot of energy and dynamics and these frequencies that are really resonant for us at this time. It's a very rich time to be moving through the solar system on this third rock from the sun here as we continue to evolve and journey as souls, as individuals, as a collective soul, as a planetary soul, as a solar cell, as a solar system. So much to contemplate. So rich. And Taurus season itself is probably one of my favorite seasons in the entire sort of solar calendar. These 12 phases that we celebrate and observe as we observe the sun moving through these different 12 sections of the sky. Of course, that's from our geocentric perspective. We know that we are moving around the sun also moving. But, it gives us a chance to reflect and to observe and appreciate these cyclical changes that we experience here on this planet. And, Taurus here in the northern hemisphere anyway, is the peak of spring, right? It's one of the reasons that we imbue it with this quality of being so focused on the environment, on nature, on the earth itself. It is an earth sign. And because of its placement in the middle of spring, the peak of spring, this fixed earth sign, it really is the time of year when we witness the full blossoming of the seasons, right? And here in New England, it's just so amazing as every day a new color is popping out. There's these rich yellows and pinks and whites and hues, and the fragrances that are coming with the flowering of the apple blossoms and the plum blossoms, and then the increased in activity with the birds and the insects and the mammals and the reptiles. There's just this building buzz and hum of activity as everything just kind of comes back to life after a winter of dormancy and dark and gray and short days. The days are getting longer. The sun is moving across the sky and to a more northern position. Everything is just growing. And so it's rich, it's sensual, right? It's Taurus. So it's just worth stopping and appreciating that. If nothing else, these sort of seasonal reminders of, this is a great time of year to get outdoors, right? If you've been cooped up all winter, like go for a hike, take a long walk, go on a trail, go to a hot spring, go to, dip your toes in the water for the first time of the year, maybe. Really just a delicious time to be alive. Added to that, of course, every season is unique because while these seasonal cycles are consistent and constant, where all the rest of the planets are during each season is unique, particularly with the outer planets. And we have a couple of pretty significant transits coming our way in Taurus season this month, so worth taking a dive. So that's what we're going to do here. We'll jump in and I've been playing around with some of these AI image generated websites, and they really are pretty amazing. I got to tell you, as a Gemini ruled by Mercury, the ability to use a descriptive text prompt and get an image back that reflects that sort of intellectual concept is really something. It's really quite amazing. And so this image that I looked at as I was writing an article this morning about Taurus season and about what the article, I titled it A Quantum Leap in Consciousness, because that's kind of one of the archetypal configurations that we're being offered or presented with as an opportunity with what's happening in the transits this month. And, this Taurus notion of reconnecting, re-embodying, re-embedding ourselves into our own bodies and our home, this planetary body, this beautiful blue planet that we're traveling through space and time on. And I just really got this just inspiration of and connection to that sense of the Gaia consciousness, the Gaia mind. So this image representing that Gaian connection, that we're all connected. And I just love, how she's sitting in this almost like a bird's nest, if you will. And that wasn't part of my prompt, actually. So it was a pleasant surprise to get that image back. Anyway, Taurus season 2024. But what's going to make this season unique is if we flip over here to the current chart, and actually I have this up for tomorrow, because one of the first things we're going to get as we move into Taurus season is a full moon in Scorpio, right? This will happen on April 23rd, which is tomorrow, at 4 degrees of Taurus and Scorpio, respectively. And I think, Taurus being probably the most sensual season of the year, and so this Scorpio full moon is probably, I would say, the sexiest lunation of the year. Maybe second only to the Taurus full moon that occurs every Scorpio season. So, these are two kind of pairs of polarities when we consider the sun and moon in opposition at a full moon here in Taurus season. But a really juicy full moon, made more intense by the fact that it's being squared by Pluto here in Aquarius at 2 degrees. So we can see this pretty intense square between this full moon. It's going to add a real dimension of intensity to this full moon. And I would say Scorpio full moons on their own are rather intense, right? That scorpionic quality. And if we wanted to look at just what we look at with these archetypes between Taurus and Scorpio, as I said, everything I've been discussing here with Taurus being that fixed earth sign, and it's all about our sensuality, our sexuality. It can have these hedonic qualities to it, right? It has this very affectionate and sensual nature. It can be very possessive, right? It wants to have, right? That's the voice of Taurus, is I have. And you look at that in contrast with Scorpio, I desire, right? Both of them have a possessive quality to them, which is why there's an intense magnetism between these two archetypes that really draws us in to really focus intensely on the other and on our intimate relationships, right? It's relationship to self, which I think Taurus at its essential nature is really about this need to be self-sustaining and self-reliant in many ways, where Scorpio is really about the need to merge, where you just become the other person in a way. You merge as one entity, if you will. And that's what kind of the power of the sexual union really gives us. But you also can consider that this is the sun and the moon in these respective signs. And there's a little bit of an interesting sort of, not a dichotomy, but like there's a merging of opposites, because we think of the sun and its expressive nature as being a little bit more of that creative, outmoving masculine yang energy. The moon being more reflective and inward moving feminine yin energy. But to have the sun in Taurus, which is a feminine Venus-ruled sign, and the moon in Scorpio, also feminine, but Mars-ruled sign, there's this interesting sort of ambiguity and almost a bisexuality to it. Like it's as if the anima and the animus are changing sides, or, a need for the integration, really. Ideally, right, all of the oppositions, and particularly the full moon, is all about how do we integrate these two polarities. There's some higher order, right? There's the thesis, the antithesis, and the synthesis, right? How do we synthesize these two energies? And, also considering it's Venus and Mars, right? Where Venus is all about that sensuality of relating and finding the balance and the feminine, right? And Mars has that aggressive, masculine sort of quality to it. And so, this can be a really intense time, right? This full moon energy, considering all of those factors, right? And then you throw Pluto into the mix, and that just turns the intensity up to 11, right? Anytime Pluto gets involved, it just intensifies everything it touches, right? It is this unconscious desire of the soul to evolve, to mutate, to transmutate, to osmose, to continually transform itself. And that can be very intense and very overwhelming at times, right? And if we think about Pluto as the sort of modern ruler of Scorpio, to have this configuration, and I think I do have, Pluto in Aquarius, right? This instinctual, volcanic, eruptive desire, and it's very unconscious. It comes from the libidinal depths, right, of Hades, right? It's involved with sex and power and this primordial urge, the Kundalini energy. It feels like this full moon has a lot of that sort of Kundalini rising, sort of tantric bliss potential to it, right? When you consider the aggregate of all of these archetypes working together. So, in this chart, that's a pretty intense signature, and it's a pretty close aspect. You got, within a couple degrees of exactitude with this square. So, worth just noting and being really aware of that energy pattern as we move into this Scorpio full moon. You may feel this really strong desire to have these transformational experiences. So, if you're in relationship, it's a great time to explore, to take that relationship to a new depth, to really share in a deep intimacy under this full moon energy. Or if you're single or not in a relationship, this may be a time where that attraction to to a partner, may be really turned up to a high level, high frequency. And this is really potent energy. Like the word potency really just kind of percolates to the surface, doesn't it? When we look at all of these archetypes and those word clouds, and really get a sense of what is being constellated here. Intensity, passion, potency, passion, right? And that can, it's unconscious, right, with this Pluto activation. So you have to be really aware and sensitive at the same time, because it can lead us into, destructive or cataclysmic types of behaviors that can be self-sabotaging, right? We could sabotage ourselves. We could sabotage our partners. There can be jealousy. There can be that possessiveness that Taurus creates, right? And that, there's a violent signature to Mars ruled Scorpio and to Pluto in general. So just a word of caution, be aware of, this is what I always argue for, taking this archetypal astrological perspective on things. It's just really giving us a heightened awareness and sensitivity to the energies that are constantly shifting as we move through these patterns. So that one's pretty prominent, and that kind of kicks off Taurus season. And so that, that energy will stay in effect, right? As we move through the days of this month, obviously that square falls away. The Pluto stays square to the sun for a little bit longer, but that energy pattern is sort of imprinted onto this entire season. Now, the next thing that I want to look at is just the next day, right? So on the 24th, we're getting an exact conjunction of Jupiter and Uranus. And this is a very, very big, important, sort of monumental type of transit that happens, this is about a 13, 14-year cycle on average, right? The last time we had a Jupiter-Uranus conjunction was back in 2010, and it occurred back in Pisces. So if you can think about the energy patterns that were in effect for you in your life at that time, here is the next iteration of that cycle. So everything that we've experienced since then, right, from 2010 and that Pisces energy between these two planets now has come full circle, and they're meeting again. So they're closing that chapter and initiating a new chapter in this, what we call synodic cycle. And, if you really think about the sort of Piscean quality to that period we're coming out of, this past 14 years, a lot of things. We have Neptune moving through Pisces at the same time over most of that period. So there has been this, I think, very Piscean quality to the period that we've just moved through. And we are really breaking through, I think, once Neptune moves out in 2025, it's a whole new chapter we're about to begin. So now we can take a look at, well, what does it mean here to have to have Jupiter and Uranus conjunct in the sign of Taurus, exact the day after the full moon, with the sun moved into Taurus. So in Taurus season, it's sort of a doubling and a trebling of the impact of that Taurus archetype. So it's really causing us or forcing us to focus on what is the potential here within Taurus, Earth, the fixed signs, the embodiment, right? And this is where I'm getting into this, sort of Gaia consciousness. One of the things that I was really moved through was I was writing and reflecting and contemplating this transit was, this real call to a re-embodiment, to really get back into our bodies. These beautiful meat suits, these vehicles that we get to, test drive or lease really for 70, 80, 90 years if we're lucky, and to experience consciousness embodied consciousness. And so it feels like on sort of the plus side, the positive, and this is a very potentially positive conjunction. It's one of those cycles that, as astrologers, we just sort of salivate at, because it does constellate such a potential for really tremendous change and impact and growth and unexpected and sudden breakthroughs, insights, epiphanies. It has this wonder quality to it. And something that I reference this book a lot, but Richard Tarnas's book Cosmos and Psyche, where he looks at these cycles over history, and he when he looked at this Jupiter Uranus cycle, it was times of it correlates with great breakthroughs in science, incredible expressions and bursts of creativity in the arts, music and creativity and culture and film and writing. A lot of those potentials are constellated when these two planets align. It's just part of the observable pattern of these two archetypes when they fuse in this way. And so to have that incredibly expansive capacity taking place in Taurus, it really is calling us, I think, at the grandest level to really reconnect with, the Gaian mind, the fact that we are embedded on this planet that is our home, right? We saw with Taurus and Venus, it's all about domestication. It's about the home. It's about having a secure place. It's about survival, right? That's really what Taurus comes down to at its quintessence, is how do I endure and persevere on this physical material plane? So we're really being called to, I get this sense of re-embodiment, right? And I think, it's easy to get disembodied in our modern culture. We are really called to live in a very mental, very digital, very virtual world many times. And it really does pull us out of the physical, of the embodied, right? And as I said, this time of year when we can just look around and realize how just the awesome beauty of this planet, and this opportunity, our physicality, our sensuality, our sexuality, like what a gift, right? And I think the energy of this month really has that capacity, the sense of awesome wonder and joy at being alive, right? It's a very vital signature anytime we have these two planets together. And so I'm getting the taste of that. It's already palpable. It's been in effect here for the last week or so as it moves towards this exact conjunction tomorrow, and then it will last another week with very strongly coming out of that. So I really encourage you to be aware of that powerful energy, right? And really to feel into it deeply. It's a great time to start or renew any kind of routines or habits that have the quality of being grounded, right? One of my favorites is just, when was the last time you walked barefoot in the grass or on the beach, in the sand, in the dirt, on a riverbed? Like, that physical grounding is so healthy for our bodies. The other area that is ruled by Taurus is food, right? Literally the sustenance that keeps us alive. And so a really great time to re-examine, reevaluate, what are you putting in your body, right? This is an incredible awareness of you are what you eat. So I know I'll be taking a deeper look at and considering how I fuel myself, the quality of the foods you put in, opting for healthier, fresher, organic produce or dairy products or meats, whatever it is. There's no judgment about, you've got to be a vegetarian or a pescatarian or whatever it is, but consider the quality of everything that you eat, right? You are what you eat. And this is a great time to really instill some healthier habits around those issues, right? And of course, we always talk about how equally constellated with all of these configurations is the shadow side of all of, right? The potential for abuse of your body, for overindulgence, right? Nothing can be more overindulgent than Jupiter, right? That's its shadow side is excess, self-indulgent. So Jupiter moving through Taurus, we may have been overdoing it with food and beverage, food and wine and beer and alcohol, and that's all on the table here, right? And with Uranus, this just sort of crazy, chaotic energy, which, if you're not really careful, could cause some real disruptions and some problems. You can end up with health issues, some digestive issues like indigestion and just bloating or inflammation, or just, if you think about it, most of the diseases that we suffer from in this country are food related. And it's just a fact. We live in an era of the industrial agricultural complex, You know, if you're connected to media, you watch television, you're going to see ad after ad after ad for the worst, shittiest foods on the planet, right? Processed foods, processed beverages, just crap. So it's something to be aware of and something to really reconsider as you move through this season. So also want to just, we'll just bring up, I think I created a, here's a good look at, this triangulation, if you will. Like, what do we get when we get Jupiter and Uranus together moving through Taurus? And so all of these things that I just sort of articulated and even more. I haven't really focused on that Uranian contact, right? So think about Jupiter, that we say that it expands everything that it comes into contact with, that expansive quality. And it does have this sort of, joyful optimism. There's a kindness to it. It's noble, it's inspired, it's honorable. It wants the truth, right? It has a gentle quality, generous, liberal, spiritual. Of course, it has the shadow. It can be self-indulgent and overindulgent, or, there are its downsides. But in general, Jupiter, they call it the great benefic for a reason, right? Now it's coming into contact with Uranus, which is liberation, right? Freedom from the known, exploring the unknown. It has this rebellious, revolutionary quality to it. It wants freedom, individuation, that higher mind, right? The higher mind and higher education. So you can see how this often constellates these scientific breakthroughs, revolutionary. It's like these big thinking, the big ideas meet up with a release of genius, right? And I love that quality of Uranus. And so you can see why this is a really potent and powerful and delicious kind of configuration, right? The potential for, huge expansion and growth in all of humanity, right? It's there. And if we can channel that into this sense of, the love of beauty, the love of nature, this artistic quality that Taurus possesses, right? There's some really lovely type of energy that can be manifested. Like, this is where I get the sense of embodiment. Now, there's also a dark side to this. Let me just show you. I often like to do this where, here are the sort of the light and the shadow of this kind of archetypal configuration. And as I said, dramatic breakthroughs, quantum leaps, right? And you can see all that constellated. Rebirth and awakening, surprising resolutions, collective epiphanies. And I'm writing a line, it's like, boy, could we use a collective aha moment in humanity right now? Wouldn't that be wonderful if suddenly everyone was like, hey, we're all in this together. Like, why are we fighting and killing each other? How about we all just get along? And I know that's a pipe dream, but that's the kind of pipe dreams that this kind of configuration can manifest. But, you get the dark side, this manic and impulsive excess. This one really jumped out in hubris and overweening pride, get-rich schemes, unbridled eccentricity, and irresponsible rebellion. And one of the things that I was really, unless you're living under a rock, everything about our current technology, particularly focused on the power of AI and quantum computing and all of this intersection of technology and this realization, right, where we are as a species, as a planetary consciousness. We are seemingly up against this rather existential crisis. And there's a big move or push or belief, or I would even say faith, in technology as being the great savior. There's a lot of talk about how AI is going to solve all of our problems. that we've created with our technology. And this is a pattern that repeats, and Uranus is involved with this, right? Because Uranus is the great sort of Promethean technological innovator of the zodiac, of the planetary family. And so, while it is a great gift, and this technology has created incredible wealth and abundance and safety and comfort for a minority, really, though. There's still millions of people on this planet who are living in utter poverty at the same time, which is just, incredibly sad and, difficult to really process. But, here in the West, we are really obsessed with this idea of artificial intelligence, artificial general intelligence, super intelligence, and it's moving so fast. And I really get this sense of this hubris that this configuration really alerts us to in a very profound way. So while I am hopeful and optimistic for some really just innovative breakthroughs to come from this configuration, I'm also deeply concerned that we can move too fast, too quickly, and that excessive pride can really be our undoing. Particularly as I consider the archetype of Taurus, right? When we looked at that word cloud, it's all about slow down, consistent, persistent, perseverance, endurance, right? It wants just, earth energy in general has that quality to it. And so to see how the technology and the ideas, that Uranian energy, Jupiter expanding, we've got Pluto into Aquarius, which is an air sign. It's really the beginning of, I think, a incredibly mentally focused, communications focused, technology focused era that we're moving into for the next 2 decades. It feels like this is maybe like the last chance to really go, hold on, maybe we should slow this down. Let's at least consider the perspective and the impact on us physically, on our bodies, on our planet, on our environment, and the world that we inhabit. I think we're at the threshold of, this transhuman impulse that we are going to move from the wearables. We wear the watches and the heart monitors and the ear implants, and we'll get the Google or the goggles and the VR, and we have Neuralink and the like. That's just the most well-known company, Elon Musk's company, but brain implants and the human computer interface. It is coming, it is happening, and it is moving so rapidly that it can be terrifying a little bit. I'm a little overwhelmed by the speed at which it seems to be coming at us. And just hoping that this time, this energy, this frequency gives us pause and allows us to really consider all of the ramifications. And as I always say, sometimes these problems at the collective level can seem so big and so complex, and we feel, just sort of disempowered and just overwhelmed. Like, what can one person do in the face of all of this complexity? And we kind of, take our sovereignty and our decision making and give it to an authority figure to say, well, the scientists will figure out, the politicians will figure it out. Will they? And just that reminder that it starts with all of us, each one of us making decisions based on our own human sovereignty, our own bodies, right? And this is the sovereignty of the body is becoming a legal battle in many ways. And I don't have to tell you what's going on in the news with things like abortion rights, with things like fertility and all these drugs that we're getting on the market, vaccinations. There's so much that we're really having to deal with, the sovereignty of our own bodies, that it really is a challenge. But my sense is that this is a really good opportunity with what we're getting with the collective energies, with these transits, is to really, have a kind of a reset on all that stuff and really come back down into the body, into the Tauran, solidity of what is it like, and what is the impact of all of this on my body, on my physical well-being, health, wealth, abundance, all of those, beautiful Tauran qualities, right? The art and the beauty and the love of nature really getting re-embodied. So that's kind of got off on a little tangent there, but I've really been feeling that. And, if you're, tracking these kinds of effects, that's what we're supposed to be thinking about. And that's what this art and science of astrology is helping us to really grapple with, to make sense of, and to help us navigate. It's a beautiful map through these complex times. So that's one of the major aspects. The second one comes not too long after. By the 28th of April, we'll see that we're going to get Mars getting conjoined with Neptune in Pisces, right? And this is another fairly intense kind of meeting, if you will. If we look at these two energies, here we get the aggressive, independent, self-preservation, the assertiveness, physically competitive, action-oriented, vigorous, right? Mars, 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 go, go, go. Now it's moving through Pisces, which is, not its favorite place for Mars to, I think, be transiting. It doesn't really get to be as action-oriented as it would like, as it has to swim literally through the deep waters of Pisces. But Neptune, being the modern ruler of Pisces, has been right at home in these deep waters. And so you get a really interesting blending of these two energies when they come into contact. What stands out to me is, think about self-preservation versus self-sacrifice. That's a very interesting contradiction, right? They're very contradictory in many ways, where Mars is all about maintaining its independence. Neptune is calling us to merge into oneness, right? This is a very almost paradoxical kind of energy, but we, and Mars, I feel like, is getting maybe a little overwhelmed by this energy, right? Meeting Neptune and Pisces can really be a challenge to our sense of independence, our of sense of self, really. So, you can be, I think I have it, yeah. So again, we can see there's a light and a shadow to this configuration as well, right? If we can merge the best of these two energies, like a spiritual vitality, that's a wonderful way for that energy of Mars to touch that spiritual dimension that Neptune provides, right? Magnetic charisma, right? There is something very powerful, if you have if you have your Mars in Pisces, or if you have a Mars-Neptune conjunction in your chart, right? Those people tend to have this magnetic charisma to them. It's very powerful when activated in that synergistic way. Compassionate action, beautiful fusion of these two energies, right? Having that sense of compassion, that merging with oneness, the sensitivity, and then being able to take Mars-like action on that compassion. And boy, could the world use some compassionate action right now. Flexible resilience, going with the flow. There's a lot of beautiful ways that these two archetypes can blend. But if we resist them and the shadow gets more pronounced, demoralizing futility, and that sounds dreadful. And I think there is a sense of that very palpable in our culture right now, that, I think we're all susceptible to that. Unfocused willpower, ego trips, false healers, creepy desires. I love that one. That's an interesting way of constellating these two energies. So, this all is taking place with Saturn in Pisces as well. So really interesting. I don't know why I have white moon up there. Very interesting energy patterns to consider. And as we move further into Taurus season, there's this phenomenon where, once we get towards like the new moon in Taurus, which will come up, towards the first week in May, you can see this pattern where it's just everyone except for grandmother Pluto up here is kind of compacted into this very tight quadrant of the sky, from Pisces through Taurus. It's really interesting. And you can see too, which I thought was really nice, like they're all in a rather harmonious relationship as we move through this month as well. So, once we get past that intense full moon tomorrow and that square energy starts to fold in onto itself, and we're going to get much more gentle energy patterns that are emerging. So there's reason for some hope and some optimism with this configuration and with this astrological weather. I'm really looking forward to a really just beautiful, delicious, sensuous, expansive, connected, beautiful, artistic, lovely, I don't know any more superlatives I can give to this Taurus season. Even that Mars-Saturn, or I should say Mars-Neptune, we just got through Mars-Saturn, and that was a little bumpy. I think a couple weeks ago, I think we all felt that. But now as Mars moves in with Neptune, and we can see some of the potentials of that much more compassionate and aware use, spiritual dimension of the energy, provided we don't get deluded, self-deluded, because there's a lot of potential for self-delusion in these configurations as well. But with awareness, with foresight, and with an understanding of these energy patterns, we can know how to navigate, right, our way through it, so that we can use all of these frequencies to higher, to elevate our own vibrational frequency. So that's what I wanted to kind of jump in and share with you guys. I hope that's something that you can get some really useful takeaways from, really dig in, really come back into yourself during this season and remind ourselves how beautiful it is to be in these Tauran bodies of ours, and to really reground, reconnect with the environment, and act from that place of our highest potential, and just bring that love and that light into the world, one soul at a time, one cell at a time, right? Everything is very holographic and fractal is what we're learning about the universe. And so, each one of us is like a cell in the human body, right? And think about how all of our cells are working together within our bodies. Thank God. If they were fighting it out like we are as humans, we'd be dead and gone. So it's a nice metaphor to consider during this season. So I hope you'll take that to heart. All right. Till next time. Sat Nam, everyone.